We just heard Sandra, is it? Yeah, talk about the object as a migrant. And here we have an object, part of an art project I worked on for a few years called 100 Migratory. And it's about 100 traveling vessels of glass. And today I will give an example of how one object can be the starting point of a process of exploring identity and migration. And the vessel of glass is central today. And a vessel of glass is everything from a cupped hand that take water from a stream. It's a woman's womb carrying a baby. It's a lake. And in a vessel, you can collect something that's important to you to keep or to give away as a gift. Here we have one of the 100 vessels of glass. This is number 82. That is going on its furthest trip right now. And I want you all to have a feel of this. I don't just want you to look at it. So I'm going to pass this one around.
Can they drop it?
You can drop it, but... And also a vessel is, of course, the form human beings have used for survival in all times. So my name is Monica Edmondson, and I come from Gällivare, a town north of the Arctic Circle. And today I live in Tärnaby, close to the Norwegian border. And after 4 years of studies in the Australian National University, that's why I have a slight Australian accent, everybody wonder why, I established a glass studio and workshop in this old barn outside Tärnaby in 2002. And since then I've been working from this barn as an artist with glass as my main material. And I belong to the indigenous people of North Europe, the Sami people. It's around 80 to 100,000 of us in Sápmi, in Sami land, stretching over 4 countries. It's Russia, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. And to belong to, or the Sami people, I just want to give you a brief background so we're all on the same level with knowledge. We have been traditionally living off what nature has to offer, reindeer herding, fishing and hunting, as well as trading with neighbors to later years. And we have our own language and our own culture. We lived in the region for thousands of years in harmony and respect of nature, part of the nature, and we always made sure to leave it clean and healthy for future generations. Today we are part of a modern society with an ongoing strong Sami culture and identity. However, 400 years ago, of course, colonization started in our land, Sápmi, like in a lot of places around the world, and it's still ongoing. A fact that caused growing frustration and anger, especially in the younger, braver, and really strong younger generation. And these images you can see here is from a manifestation last year by Sami artists in front of the Cultural Minister of Sweden, demanding respect for Sami culture, language, and land rights. The Sami culture I belong to, the nature and my life in Tärnaby, play an important part in my work as a glass artist. And one of the reasons I started to work with glass initially is because of its transparency and resemblance to the ice and the snow. And here you can see some of the other work I'm doing. And it's a feeling of that winter space I'm trying to express in glass, not necessarily how it looks like. And somewhere in that winter space, there should be a core of warmth, a heart, or a center of fire, which for me is my Sami heritage. And this is where all the colors come into my work. And the composition of the mainly primary colors in the marine part of my work originates from my area's costume. One of the details I used is called gavlos, and it's a detail in the back of the neck that you can see on the right on this picture. And to wear my Sami costume is always very special. It gives a sense of beauty, a sense of belonging, and of pride. And it's interesting to study the costume through times and to see what we call traditional today, as in this image on the left, has in the past constantly changed depending on what kind of materials were available, as well as influences from other cultures. And even fashion has influenced. The length of the costume for women have gone up and down depending on what's happening on the catwalks around the world. Today, we use silk materials in a traditional costume, jeans materials, and that for me is a sign of a healthy culture that's going to survive through time. And I think in a way that we need to look back now and then to try to understand previous generations' ways of thinking, living, and expressing themselves, to be able to understand ourselves and what we're up to now and the society we live in today. And when I began to work with glass, I studied traditional Sami objects, and by exploring original form, colors, and patterns, I wanted to reinterpret that into a contemporary context. I also looked at traditional materials used and tried to incorporate glass with those materials. I looked at a nålhus on the left here, an object made of reindeer antler, which is containing sewing materials and needles and carried in the belt. And on the right, I made a necklace in glass. And the left image in this one is from the Principal Museum of Sami, which is called Aitia Museum in Jokkmokk, which main collection of Sami objects were donated by the Museum of Ethnography in Stockholm. And another pendant of glass was inspired by the top of a woman's pole. I guess I needed this time exploring traditional objects in new materials to link the past with what I was doing today. However, in this kind of work, I felt that something was missing. I didn't get into the core of what I really wanted to express. And the main problem facing Sami artists today is that Sami art is sometimes expected to look in a certain way, as well as the public or some media's attitude of kind of lumping us together as a collective instead of seeing us as individuals with our various ways of expressing. And for some, it can be a conflict to have such a strong connection with the past and such a strong sense of keeping an old tradition alive, at the same time exploring the new. And I've never felt a burden or a conflict on my culture, yet it was a really great feeling to get to Canberra and study and to get far away, because it was a place where no one was questioning what I was doing relating to my Sami heritage. It was me, myself, that was deciding. It was coming from me if something came out. It wasn't the expectations from others. And that was very important to me. And something to maybe think about in the context of museums too, I think. And a very strong memory I have from one of the first days I spent in Australia is a sculpture in a gallery made by the contemporary Aboriginal artist Fiona Foley. And this is called The Annihilation of the Blacks from 1986. And as you can see there, it's black figures carved in wood, hanging kind of like dead fish on a drying rack, which is common in North Australia and Queensland. And standing up was a white figure, and as a shadow of the white was a black figure laying down. And this sculpture made me aware of the struggle to keep an old culture in Australia alive. And it was political and historical statements flourishing within art. And strangely enough, this sculpture made me feel more at home in Australia than ever before. And many Sami artists are also, of course, dealing with issues of identity and belonging. Maria Helander, which made these two, is one of them. And she is, in her own way, asking questions of what is genuine. Should the Sami people grab on to a better in the old days kind of way of living, to be able to keep the status as an indigenous group of people? Or can the laptop and a city be part of a Sami life without making that person kind of less Sami, if you understand what I mean? And here we have an artist on the left, Katarina Piirac-Sikko, on the left, exploring post-colonial trauma from a time when Sami people were examined, measured, and photographed by racial biologists. And on the right, we have skulls of Sami people from plundered graves in the north, which is now at the University of Lund in South Sweden. And all these wounds from the past to current issues of natural resources and land rights are causing, of course, controversies between the Swedish state and the Sami. And some of these issues are related to the mining industry and engage activism and very loud protests and demonstrations in the north, as you could see in an image before. And I would tell you the story about the only glass vessel out of the 100 that broke, as long as this one isn't breaking now. Who knows? I haven't heard anything yet. And it came back in pieces from one of those demonstrations against mining. But first I need to give you some background to this art project of mine, 100 Migratory, spanning several years back from the actual making of the 100 glass vessels in my studio to the final glass and image installation with a dance performance exhibited at the Museum of Västerbotten in Umeå, which was also part of the European Capital of Culture in 2014. And here we have some images from the opening weekend. And there are so many different layers of issues I want to express in this work. One of them is that I'm so tired of all unnecessary conflicts around the world and the lack of communication. I'm so tired of everything from kids bullying at school to war and conflicts about whose God is really the God. And I think in a way we all have an obligation to prevent everything from these small unnecessary conflicts to large catastrophes like the one in New York, 9/11, or the one at Utøya, the island of Utøya in Norway in 2011. And I look at myself and I don't want to be a politician and I don't want to be angry. I want to do something fun and something I can. And then I see this project 100 Migratory as my contribution to the debate of a kind of warmer, more welcoming world. A world in which we help each other to find that center and core in life, that secure belonging to something. A world in which we include instead of excluding. And my core in my life is within the Sami community. We need a world in which we respect each other and meet each other's differences with curiosity and respect instead of suspicion and even hate. A world in which we understand we all have the same basic needs as humans. We are alike. At the same time, each one of us are unique and has to really be allowed to be unique. Some of us have to travel to another country and culture to understand that. And just like my vessels, they have been sent one-on-one to other countries. I would really like to, for example, we talked about this earlier, I would really like to put the future president of the US in one of those boxes and send away to another country far away, where it's another language, another culture, another life, and to stay there for a year or 4 years, just to be able to get this understanding of how it is to be in someone else's place. So that's my personal little idea, but it's big to get into this small one. Yeah. But in this work, I also wanted to raise, of course, the form of a vessel, which I talked about before. But also I want to talk to you about that, why I use the material of glass. I use glass for its fragility. At the same time, it's very strong and will last forever if looked after according to its needs. And the colors, they are there to stress their origin in Sápmi. And my intention was that the 100 vessels were going to create their own individual stories, starting in their home in Ultevis, in my home area, the mountains. And here's some winter images when we took the vessels up there with the 2 photographers, Karl-Johan Utsi and Mikael Rutberg. And later on, they've been sent one-on-one as individuals around the world. I'll take this pretty quickly. And images and stories from these travels can be tracked down also on my blog. So the blog is part of my work here too. And finally, I want to talk about this vessel that broke, vessel number 36. The story is that the glass was sent to demonstrations against mining in Gallok outside Jokkmokk in the North Sweden, as on the top left photo here. Later on, it was exhibited in a show, Gallok Protest Start, and in an attempt to secure this vessel onto the wooden stump with some glue. The glue failed to cure, and the vessel actually slowly, during the night when it was locked, walked down to the edge and tipped down. And so this is the only glass broken, and I'm not surprised at it's this specific one, as I really think other forces we might not be fully aware of are involved in some objects and in this artwork, 100 Migratory. So this kind of was my contribution to this conference, trying to raise awareness and respect for indigenous people, part of this modern society of the world, and what's important to us now, as well as a message of including instead of excluding in our society today. Thank you.